Welcome back to This Week in 23 Sports. And joining me in studio is golf analyst Emma Tiedemann. Emma, how was your Easter break?
Oh, filled with egg hunting and church and such.
You find any eggs?
Couple.
That's good. But, let's get down to business. And first things first, how would you rate the Tigers' golf season thus far?
Well, the Tigers have been, I'd say, kind of so-so. I mean, they finally had their first place finish in a tournament a couple weeks ago, but yet they're still finishing 13th and 15th this far into the season with, big tournaments such as the Big 12 tournament coming up. So, mediocre, I'd say.
Need a little bit more consistency there.
Right, exactly.
Achieving their potential. But the Tigers have two golfers with first-place finishes this year, Jace Long and Emilio Quartero. Who's your MVP of the team?
Well, between the two, I would have to say Jace Long because, looking at their stat lines, they have just about the same averages when it comes to, hitting the pars and stuff like that. But Jace Long, he has two first-place finishes along with the third place, and also he finishes up a little bit higher. Emilio Quartero, he's finished first and third, but no higher than 10th other than that.
Yeah, so Jace Long, that's who most people always assume is the MVP. But moving on, the Columbia Orthopedic Group Mizzou Intercollegiate started yesterday, and we actually sent MUTV out there, so let's run that package real quick.
A tradition unlike any other concluded on Sunday evening, but don't think for a second that the golf world has stopped spinning, because today, 15 universities met here at the club at Old Hawthorne for the 5th annual Mizzou Intercollegiate. You couldn't have asked for any better conditions than the links on Monday morning for the Mizzou Intercollegiate, as Missouri, along with Wisconsin, Creighton, Iowa State, among many other schools, teed off, and the Tigers wound up having a terrific outing on the day. Senior Chris Johnson from right here in Columbia, Missouri, took aim on this approach, and it landed him on the green. Sadly for him, however, he could not make this putt on the 10th hole. Johnson finished the day at 11 over par, tying him in 53rd place with two other Tiger players, including Tommy Wenenberg, who was seen here channeling his inner Arnold Palmer, striking one from the sand trap, and landed on the green, and was later tapped in here at the 10th hole. Whether or not Wenenberg was seen drinking a combination of iced tea and lemonade, however, is still in question. Senior Brad Moody had a day much like Wenenberg and Johnson, as he was the other Tiger golfer to sit at 11 over par and be tied at 53rd place. But thanks in part to freshman Ryan Zeck and junior Jace Long, the Tigers finished the day at the Old Hawthorne up by 20 strokes at 12 under par. You could not have asked for any better weather today, as it was pristine conditions here at the club at Old Hawthorne for the first day of the Mizzou Intercollegiate, and hopefully tomorrow, the conditions here on the links will be just as good, as well as the golf being played. From the club at Old Hawthorne, Christopher Novak, 23 Sports.
Welcome back. And Emma, could you give us a recap of the tournament events so far?
Well, Mizzou did very well. They finished 20 under par, and even freshman Ryan Zeck had his first title. And Jace Long finished third, hitting just 3 over Ryan Zeck. So overall, the team did a very good job. Finishing in second place was Iowa State, 20 strokes over Mizzou.
It's always nice to get that home victory, defend your turf. But the Tigers have one more event before the NCAA Regional Championship, and it's the Big 12 Championship. Could you tell us how the Tigers are set up to succeed in those tournaments?
Well, because they finished so well here in their the orthopedic group tournament, I think that they're going in with a little bit of momentum. And a freshman Ryan Zeck, he did very well along with Jace Long. So it's good to see that they're going in with a big win over other Big 12 competitors.
It's always a nice thing to have, especially our last year in the Big 12. But the Tigers have never won an NCAA championship in golf, generally reserved for the Yales and Stanfords. So what do you think the odds are that Jace Long or Emilio Quartero or any of the other golfers get hot just the right time and bring home a trophy from Mizzou?
Well, OSU has won 9 out of the 15 past years for the title. So they're going up against a program that is, known for its golf. But I think, like you said, if Emilio Quartero or Jace Long or even Ryan Zeck, who had a nice showing in this previous tournament, really get going, and they can just surprise, the other competitors and, maybe come home with Mizzou's first title.
It's always a nice thing to get that first title. But thank you, Emma, for bringing us up to par with the men's golf team. I'm sorry for that terrible pun. But next, Ryan Freese will preview the coming football season with Tim, so stay tuned.
So although we're a student-run TV station, we like to keep it pretty classy here at MUTV. Swipe-in, card access, collared shirts, the general stuff, Excuse the mess right now, though. We're updating our facility a little bit. It's starting to seem right down here.
welcome back. Ryan Freese was supposed to join me in studio, but he got confused and went to our old studio in the ASC. Fortunately, we were able to get him on the show via satellite to talk about the upcoming football season. Ryan, thanks for joining us. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you, Tim, and I just want to let everyone know, if you ever go on a road trip with Tim, don't let him navigate.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. All right, with the football team moving to the SEC, what is the biggest change they'll need to make from going from last season to make a strong transition to the SEC?
I think the biggest change is just going to be adapting to that size difference. Obviously, our players are not the biggest by any stretch, and the play of the SEC is also much different. They like to run the ball a lot more than the Big 12 does, and that's going to be a good test for the defense to see where they're at. And I mean, the size difference is going to be a big problem in the trenches. They'll have to overcome that and really work on defending that run.
Now, we're going to talk about how they'll do this season a little bit later on in the show, but do you think that it's going to take a couple of years to get that transition to the SEC, or will we see results right away next season?
Well, you know, you can never really tell, like, a transition like this. I mean, you want to think that they're going to just jump right in and get going, and, you know, to some extent they might be able to. I know that, I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk, and there's good expectation. There's thought that they might finish 8-4. They could get big SEC victories over Vanderbilt, Kentucky, possibly Florida, Tennessee. And with the game that they played against Texas A&M down in College Station last year, there's no reason to think they couldn't beat them again.
All right, fair enough. James Franklin, the quarterback for the Tigers, he's been pretty up and down last season. Do you think he has what it takes to take his game to the next level, and what do you think he needs to do so?
I think the biggest change for James is that he needs to be a little more confident. He needs to trust his receivers a little bit more. I mean, you'd see last year he'd force a lot of passes and some of the throws would be a little off. He just needs to trust that his receivers can get to those well-thrown balls. He's not a bad thrower at all. He doesn't have the strongest arm, but he can get the ball where it needs to go. He just needs to trust that his receivers can catch it.
And you talk about that trust. He's also been very, very dependent on those legs of his to make some plays rather than throwing the football. We sent a reporter to the spring scrimmage. We're going to get a quick look at that, and we'll come back in just a second.
As the Missouri Tigers head into the last week of their spring practice, they do so without junior quarterback James Franklin, who underwent shoulder surgery last week. His absence is leaving room for plenty of young guys to step up. With starting quarterback James Franklin playing the role of assistant coach, redshirt freshman Corbin Bergstresser held the reins to the offense for the first time.
I think you look at Corbin, and Corbin, you know, he's doing really an outstanding job. And Ashton, I thought overall had a pretty good, you know, pick at the end, and you know, we obviously can't throw interceptions, but you know, he's done well. And James is, you know, when he's out there, he's got to stay focused on the play. You know, you can, instead of being a spectator, you know, can you mentally go through everything just as if you're playing, and that's what we try to get all our injured players to do.
Throughout the morning, Bergstresser showed promise for the distant future of Missouri football, as he threw for 255 yards on 18 completions. The bigger story on the day, however, was the performance of standout wideout T.J. Moe, as he caught 8 passes for 151 yards from the redshirt freshman.
But look at it as an opportunity to get better and, you know, hopefully help this offense a little bit.
Despite 4 offensive touchdowns, the defense stood out and took control of the scrimmage as they defeated the offense by a score of 20-8. The Tigers wrap up spring practice with their annual black and gold game on April 14th, with Corbin Bergstresser leading the first-teamers. From Devine Pavilion, Creighton Hayes, 23Sports.
All right, Ryan, just seeing what we looked at right there, how do you think the team is looking this spring?
Well, obviously the defense has been dominating the scoreboard over the spring, and, you know, that's a good thing for this move to the SEC. The only problem is that they're facing backup quarterbacks Ashton Glazer and Corbin Bergstresser, so that's not a great determination of where they are right now.
The SEC is really well known for their defense. Do you think Mizzou's defensive side of the ball has what it takes to stand up to the other defenses in the SEC?
Yeah, I think there's always that potential there. You know, sadly, with the loss of Jacquez Smith and Dominique Hamilton, you're losing a lot of speed off the end of that line and a big point in that run defense, which they're going to have to redevelop if they want to be able to compete in the SEC. But you've got Brad Madison, Sheldon Richardson, and Lucas Vincent all leading the charge there. I think that they do have the potential to fare pretty well in the SEC. They just need to focus more on wrapping up to get those tackles, because last year a lot of times we'd see them go for the big hits and force fumbles, but they wouldn't get them, and the teams would get another 5 to 10 yards on those. They really need to wrap up to get those tackles.
Yeah. You know, talking about that strong defense of the SEC, do you think the Mizzou offense fits well against those defenses? Where do you see the offense doing this year?
Well, obviously, with that SEC defense, they're, due to being known for a running game, they're also known for run defense. And that's going to be a problem for the Tigers, because last year they were very dependent on that run game. Over 500 total yards just last season alone. And between losing running back Henry Josie is a huge hit. I doubt he'll be back this season. And James Franklin and Kendall Lawrence, they won't be able to bolster that offense. They really need to develop that passing game. James Franklin needs to get that trust. You know, he's got TJ Moe, Marcus Lucas. Soon we'll be seeing the arrival of Dorial Green Beckham. So he needs to develop that trust with those receivers and really work on that passing game.
Definitely. All right. The Tigers have a very rough schedule in their first season in the SEC. What kind of record do you see them getting, and where do you see them competing in the SEC East?
Well, like I said before, Tim, I think they have a pretty good chance. I mean, you look at the teams that they're going to be playing, I think they could finish possibly 8-4, maybe even better. I mean, it's going to be a tough game against Florida down there in the swamp, but with last year's win at College Station against A&M, they can do it again this year. A&M's losing Ryan Tannehill, their quarterback, and, you know, I mean, teams like Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Tennessee, they've been struggling in football the past few years. I really think that the Tigers can do well in the SEC and possibly get to a good bowl game.
All right, well, thank you, Ryan, for taking that look at the first season of the SEC for the Tigers. When we come back, we are going to play a new game, so stay tuned.